Billy Edwards has proved everybody wrong.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Billy Edwards has proved everybody wrong. I mean everybody. I know a lot of you guys were Billy Edwards people and thought Billy Edwards was going to be good. And I know a lot of people that are not Billy Edwards people and didn't think Billy Edwards was going to be good. And I know a lot of people thought in between, maybe he would just be decent. But I don't know if anybody through the first 4 games of the season would think that Billy Edwards has been as good as he has been. I don't think anybody would have guessed that he has been as good as Billy Edwards has been throughout the first 4 games of the season. If you would have told me the stats that Billy Edwards is working with that he has put up this season, I would have said, no, he can't do that. I would say he's not polished enough. He doesn't have enough experience. I haven't seen him come close to what he's doing now. But he proved me, and he proved basically, I feel like everybody. If you guys say I'm wrong, say I'm wrong. But I can't say that any of you guys thought that Billy Edwards would have looked this good so far throughout the season. If I'm wrong, say I'm wrong. But I don't think that anybody thought that he was going to be this good. But I know a lot of people thought he was going to be bad. I know he had a lot of doubters. But after this big win against Villanova, a huge win where we dominate Villanova 20-38. Well, I don't want to say dominate because it was more like the game was about exactly how a lot of people thought the game would go. Vegas had Villanova as an 18-point underdog, so it went about exactly like that, where it was 20-38. So they were right on that. So the game was kind of how it was supposed to play. But if Billy Edwards doesn't play as good as he plays, then I'm not saying Villanova wins, but they make the game a little bit closer. They probably, depending on what number you got it at, they definitely cover. And so I think that Billy Edwards was really elite again, and we've seen it performance after performance. I was like, after the first game of the season, I was like, okay, I'm not going to get over the moon about it. It is UConn. And then he played really well against Michigan State despite the loss, which was not on him. And then he also played really well against UVA, had a complete game against them, and then Villanova again. So 1 game, it's like, okay. 2 game, it's like, I like it more, but let me see it again. The 3rd game is where you start to really look at it. And the 4th performance, that's when you really got a pattern going on. And I think that we have a guy that is going to be a really good starter in the Big Ten this year. I feel like that's fair to say because I think he's improved more than anyone on this team has improved. I haven't seen a player that has improved as much as Billy Edwards. I don't care what you guys say. Last year, he wasn't this type of quarterback. I watched the Music City Bowl game where he won MVP, and I know a lot of you guys were high on that performance. I know he won Music City Bowl MVP, but when we break down the stats, when we really get into it, it really wasn't that good of a performance. He went like 6 of 20. Like he won an MVP going 6 of 20 because of what he did with his legs and a big screen pass to Roman Hemby. He didn't win MVP because he was putting up performances like he is now. And I'm watching him now put up performances that I haven't seen him be able to do in the past. I haven't seen him be able to complete this high number of his throws throughout the first couple of games. Like he's really accurate right now. There's definitely throws that he misses where you would like him to have back. But against Villanova, he had 4 incompletions. 28 of 32, 4 incompletions, completed 87.5% of his throws. And it's not like he's just throwing some checkdowns. Like he's averaging 10.3 yards per completion, which is a pretty big number for Billy Edwards. That means he's not just he's just not throwing it to the running backs in the flat and just keeping that completion percentage high. Like, no, he's throwing it down the field. He's moving the sticks, and we saw that. We saw that against Villanova, and I think that the fact that we ranked him as the worst Big Ten quarterback coming into the season, at first, I'll be honest, I kind of understood it. I didn't think it was going to be true, but I understood where the media, where people were coming from with that. But now you look at it and you say, he's probably a top 6 or 7 quarterback in the Big Ten right now. I think I argued that last year, and I think that I don't know if he's learned a ton from Talia or what exactly it is, but he's definitely put himself in position to be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Now, it does come with saying, it comes with a little caveat. We haven't played anybody really. Or I don't want to say we haven't played anyone because we played UVA and Michigan State, but we haven't gotten into of our schedule, which we know is coming up, starting with next week. We have a huge game that I'm actually really excited to watch, really excited to get into later in the week, but we're still going to break down this Villanova win, but we'll definitely kick it into this Indiana game just because the Villanova game was kind of an expected win, but this Indiana game, first time this year we're underdogs, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, first time this year we were underdogs. We were favorites against UConn at home, big-time favorites. We were favorites against Michigan State by 10 points almost, even though we lost that game. We were favorites against – actually, the Virginia line was weird because it was at like 1, and it I think Maryland was favored at first, and then it flipped to Virginia being favored. So actually I'm incorrect, but still – the Indiana is the first time we're going to be like real underdogs. Like I think it was 7 points underdog. So if Billy Edwards wants to prove me right, because now I'm on the train, so don't prove me wrong. You proved me wrong this first 4 games. Now prove me right when I say I think he's going to keep going and I think he's going to be a really good quarterback in the Big Ten. And I think the biggest part about it that I probably like the most is that he has such a good connection right now going with Ty Felton and the other receivers on our team, specifically Ty Felton. He's allowed Ty Felton to put up the best receiver performance I've seen that was since I've been following football at Maryland that I have seen a receiver put up in the first 4 games. I don't know a guy that has 41 receptions, 604 yards, and 5 touchdowns. What? Ty Felton's almost put up together an entire season. Like, that's a solid season for a lot of guys. Like, that's a leading receiver, like, in a season for some teams. 41 receptions for 604 yards. He's got, like, over 200 more than the next best in the Big Ten. And that's my biggest thing about it is he's established such a strong connection with Ty Felton. Like, that's part of it. Him getting our best player right now by far involved is really important part of the game, is really important to the success of Maryland football, as well as other guys are also getting involved, of course, too. Caden Prather has started to really come on, had a really good game last game, and he's starting to play better, and he had 6 receptions against Villanova for almost 60 yards and a touchdown. He's putting together consistent performances. So we're seeing our best guys, our strength of our team. I've always said it's in the receivers on the outside with those 2 guys, and that was my concern with Billy Edwards. But the fact I'm watching him get the ball there, throw the ball against Villanova, complete over 80% of his throws, the fact that I'm watching that and I'm watching him really establish with the receivers, I mean, I think it's fair. I don't know. I don't think this is crazy to say. I think through the first 4 games this year, I had to go back and look through Talia's stats, but he might have been outplaying Talia, how Talia was playing in the first 4 games last year for Maryland football. I know we started really well and everything, but if you probably go back and look at the stats, Billy Edwards might have outplayed Talia so far. So there hasn't been a drop-off, to be completely honest. And Billy Edwards offers more with his legs. So it's I'm not saying it's an upgrade yet. You got to get into some real games to start saying stuff like that. But I'm definitely saying it's not a big drop-off. So I feel really good about Billy Edwards, and I feel like he's proved everybody wrong, including me. And when I say everybody, even the people that thought he was be good, like, who really thought this guy was going to be this good so far? And he has to continue to do it, but I don't think a lot of people thought that he was going to be this good. And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's pretty fair to say that maybe a couple of people, But the majority of people, Billy Edwards has proved wrong. The people that ranked him last in Big Ten quarterback rankings, Billy Edwards has proved wrong so far. There's a part of the defense I'm excited about. There's part of the defense that I feel still pretty bad about after the win against Villanova. I'll talk about that after this ad from FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. There's a bunch of really big football games tonight. Monday Night Football, I know a lot of you guys watch. If you want to take the Jaguars or Bill game where if you want to take the Bills tonight where the Bills are 5-point favorites, you can do that on FanDuel. Or if you want to do the Commanders-Bengals game, it's a doubleheader. So make sure you guys go over to visit FanDuel to get in on some of the sports betting. I know a lot of you guys like to do it at FanDuel.com. So the defense. There's a part I really liked on Saturday that I think we have a young guy that's emerging as a star where I don't want to say it's taken a little bit of time, but it's taken a little time. And then there's another part where I still don't feel awesome about it. And I think that, to be honest, the Hoosiers at Indiana could really take advantage of a part of our football team still. We'll start with the negative. The secondary is still not good enough, to be completely honest. I don't think Maryland's secondary is good enough. I don't know exactly why. It's not clicking. I have different reasons. I want to say a lot of it's inexperience. We played a lot of young guys in that game, but we were lucky to only give up 157 yards throwing the football against Villanova. When you really go back and watch it, there's open people, and they missed some shots. They dropped some balls. Their quarterback didn't play very well. And I don't think it was because of our secondary. And a lot of people are going to look at these problems and say, you just look at the numbers and say, oh, Maryland only gave up 157. No, it didn't look good to me. And I still struggle with some of the young guys and kind of how I feel about them. I'm not saying they're not going to be good players, but it does feel like when we get to this game against Indiana and they got a guy that's slinging it around in Curtis Rourke, who's played really high-level football, when we get to that game, our secondary, I'm concerned about because Indiana's the best team we've played so far this year. And so I look at this Villanova game and I say, I'm watching guys be open. I'm watching guys get open. And if Villanova can get open against us, Indiana's going to stretch that secondary out. And it's a young group with a bunch of young players. But I don't know if we have anyone that I feel really good about out there, or even like good about. I feel solid about Jalen Husky. I'll say solid. He still has given up some plays. He still has looked shaky at times. He's looked good at times. He looks shaky at times. But other than that, I don't feel good. I don't feel solid about anybody. I feel kind of concerned about just about everybody else in that Maryland secondary, about them playing at a high level, them being able to continue to compete at a Big Ten level, them when we get to a real game against Indiana next week, when we don't play Villanova, when Villanova's quarterback's overthrowing guys, but then I'm watching Indiana, I'm watching how they're playing and knowing that they're going to take advantage of it, then I know that it's a concern. It's something that we continue to talk about, but it doesn't feel like it's gotten better. But Villanova definitely did some really good things. They did some things where I was like, okay. Remember when that Jalen Sanchez guy almost scored a 26-yard touchdown? Secondary didn't look good there. There's multiple examples of guys just not being in the right spots, guys just not being able to cover one-on-one, and I'm just peeking over my shoulder at Indiana. that's coming up this Saturday, and they got some guys for sure. Curtis Rourke right now is completing 75% of his throws. He averages 10 yards per completion, and he's 8 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. They will shred us. They have a bunch of good receivers too, but they will absolutely shred us if we don't start playing at a high level. Yeah, they're running the ball, but I promise you, they'll throw the ball over us if our secondary doesn't play better. And I don't have an answer. I can't be like, play the young guys because the young guys haven't looked good. I can't say lean on the experience because the guys that have played at least somewhat, I can't even say experience, the guys that have played at least a little bit haven't looked good either. So I don't feel good about the Maryland secondary. There is something I do feel good about. I feel really good about Michael Harris, the redshirt freshman. I think he's coming into his own. I think he's becoming one of the better linebackers we have on our team. He came in as a 4-star level recruit. I think a lot of people thought the sky was the limit for the kid. A lot of people thought he'd be a really good player. And he's only in his second year, but he didn't play a ton as a freshman. He didn't play a lot. He didn't play a ton. He got redshirted. He appeared here and there with the new redshirt rules. You can play a little bit, but he didn't play that much. And so I looked at him and I said, Michael Harris against Villanova looked like a guy. And he's energetic. He's dancing when he's making plays. But I always thought he had the talent, but I thought he had to get stronger. And it looks like the kid's gotten stronger. And I think he has a chance to be one of our better defenders. It's interesting because Ruben Hippolyte obviously in front of him, Caleb Wheatland obviously in front of him. Michael Harris is still going to play a lot, but I'm not convinced that – I think he's more talented than Caleb Wheatland. Ruben Hippolyte is definitely our best linebacker. I don't think that's a question. Third team All Big Ten last year. But what I see from Michael Harris is a guy that I think has some special ability. And I think next year when we lose Ruben Hippolyte, Michael Harris is going to be a guy that I'm going to be really excited about. I'm going to feel really high on. Remember, he's only technically a freshman, only a redshirt freshman out there making some big time plays. And so he played a season high in terms of his snaps. And he was second on the team to tackles, only to Ruben Hippolyte. I really like sprinkling him in, not even sprinkling him in, like playing him a lot. Because I think he's a stud. I think he looks really good. I think that 4-star talent's starting to show up. And he looks like a guy that's going to be a dude for Maryland football. And I feel a lot better about the depth in that linebacker room now because of him. I feel really good about if Ruben Hippolyte had to miss a game or Caleb Wheatland had to miss a game. I feel really good about Michael Harris entering and playing a lot of time for Maryland football. So I feel good about Michael Harris. I think he's going to be a really good player for Maryland football, and it is a guy. And so I feel good about Michael Harris and what he's developing into. But that's one player. And I do think it's going to bite us. Coming up. Let's get into the MVPs for this game. Who wins? Who's offensive MVP? Who's defensive MVP? I'll tell you about that after this ad from the Gametime app. Have you ever wanted to go to a game at the last minute like a Maryland Terrapins game, but finding tickets is hard? I've been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Gametime has deals on tickets right at the start of an event and even an hour after it starts. It's a place to find last-minute seats and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's go over offensive and defensive MVP for the Maryland Terrapins. So I feel like here's the thing about this MVP thing. I'm just waiting for somebody else to win these awards, especially on the offensive side of the ball. The defense side of the ball, it's been pretty verse. It's been a couple of different people. But in terms of the offensive side of the ball, it feels like it's been Billy Edwards and Ty Felton every single week. And I'm not one to give it to somebody that doesn't deserve it, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I would say that my offensive MVP is Colby McDonald. He doesn't get enough. He doesn't get noticed enough, but what he is doing consistently, don't lie. He's always our most productive back. He's our third string guy. Maybe if he gets more carries, it'll be like he's not that type of guy. He's not going to be our most productive back. But when he plays, I swear he's our most productive guy. 5 carries for 42 yards. Nothing to write home about. Nothing to go crazy about. But I really am. I'm a big run per play type of guy and average yards per carry. And he averaged 8.4 yards per carry against Villanova, which is a really special thing to do. And he continues to be our leading rusher in terms of average yards per carry, just like last year. So he definitely is an argument to be made to get more carries. Where Roman Hemby had 14 carries, got 67 yards. Definitely not a bad day for Roman Hemby. He looked good. Nolan Ray, 5 carries for 25 yards with an average of 5. Even MJ Morris got 3 carries for 20 yards, average of 6.7. None of them came close to Colby McDonald's 8.4. So I think that offensive MVP continues to be Colby McDonald. Defensive MVP, I think, is Michael Harris, kid I just talked about. Also the sack, I didn't mention that originally. I think the redshirt freshman's a special talent. I think his sideline to sideline speed. I think his versatility. I think he has some of those traits that Barham had. Not quite what Barham is, but I think he has some of those special types of movement ability, some of those special, just some of those special plays that Barham was able to make. I feel like a lot of that, I think that Michael Harris can make, and I think he can continue to do that. And I think he deserves more playing time. But he was second on our team in tackles, also at a sack. I think he's going to be a guy for us. And I keep wanting to say it took a little bit, but like not really. Like he played a little bit as a freshman, and now he's in his second year as a redshirt freshman, and it's like he's ready to go. So I don't want to say it took a little bit, but I think maybe some people thought as a freshman he would play, but I think physically he just wasn't ready yet. But I think next week against Indiana, he's an X factor. He's a guy that we need to play well. He's a guy that we can't just say, we don't really need him. Like, he's a guy we're going to need later on the season. If we want to be better on defense, if we want to continue to improve, he's a guy that ceiling has to continue to get higher and higher, and I think it will. And I think his floor will also get higher and higher as well, because you're going to feel like he's a guy that continues to learn the defense, gets better in terms of knowing how to play linebacker, and I think that's what he's really working on. But in terms of special plays, he can make a lot of difference making plays that I don't even know if Ruben Hippolyte can make. I'm not going to say that quite, but I do think he makes plays that a lot of guys on our team, a lot of guys in that linebacker room cannot make. And then wide receiver, Ty Felton is your overall MVP. How would I give it to somebody else? He had 14 receptions. I think he's won it every single week. Like, what he's doing is insane. I'm actually like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I knew he would be better this year. I mean, I thought he had a chance at the NFL, but now he's solidified. Like, he can go in the first round now in the NFL draft. I think that's definitely a possibility. But 14 receptions, 157 yards, averaging 11.2 per reception. What he's doing is special, and I haven't seen a player do that. 4 straight 100-yard games to start the season. I'll be interested to see what Indiana's game plan against this guy is, but good luck, because right now stopping him looks like something that is going to be really hard to do, something that teams aren't really going to be able to do. And so it's going to open up everybody else on the offense side of the ball in terms of receivers. But Billy Edwards has a really nice rapport with Ty Felton, so I think that we feel pretty good about Ty and what he's able to do as a player. And he's right now our overall MVP for the Villanova game, but his overall MVP so far this season. He's having one of the craziest seasons I've seen a Maryland receiver have. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.